Hello again. In this video I'll be building Moonmirth House from Elder Scrolls Online. This is part 1 of 3. To start out, I just cut some cardboard nice and evenly with the curves each side by lining it up with just some straight lines so I could get my angles correct, and then I could use it to make a template for the second one so that both ends are perfectly even. Then when I cut it out, I make sure that both pieces are mirror image to each other. I drew the windows up the same way I did with the front, put some lines down so I could make the first one exactly right with the curves being even on both sides. It's important because I want to use it as a template later. Be aware of the corrugations and where they run with your cardboard and walls, just for later on for bending and flexibility. When cutting out this window, do it the best job you can, because using it as a template later, you need it to be really good first go if you can get it. This will save you time and give you a better finish. All the pieces are ready to put the frame together. Hang on to your templates for doors and windows. You'll need them later to make the actual window and door frames. Now that we've got our basic structure, it's time to get working on the roof. The roof is super soft and flexible, just so I can run it down the curve of the roof and it'll just sit snugly and perfectly with no gaps. As I did with the walls, I do the same with the roof. I make a mirror image template so I can fit them together perfectly and they'll be even on both sides. You just cut the roof template out and then start scoring. You can do it first with a pen and a ruler, and then after that just cut through, scoring bit by bit. It's a bit tedious, but it works pretty good. And then it's soft and flexible and just fits exactly how you need it to. Little tiny hole that I put in there for later on, I'm going to put some tiny little lights in. Just need to make sure that I can put them in later on without any real problems. So I just tried to put the hole in advance. It'll remind me to put the lights in later. I just use insulation foam for the base underneath the building, and some foam board that'll go underneath that again. I used 2 different types, one because one was the right thickness on its own, and the other I had to cut it to the right thickness, but it was necessary. But it's worked out in the end, and I can cut angles into the insulation foam, and I can also sculpt it even just with the end of a brush like this, because it's really nice and soft and spongy. Makes it really easy for putting indentations and grooves in. When you're using the foam board, remember to take the paper off. If you don't take the paper off, it's just like using a piece of cardboard and there's kind of no point. You need to remove it so you can make some nice lines and grooves in it to make some wood. Just drawing up each board, and then after you do that you can do some much lighter lines and just make the grain in the wood. It's really nice, simple stuff. Now that the structure and the base is done, it's time to get painting. I'm just using some earthy tones. I just want to make just a sort of a standard brown, just so I can make a base colour on pretty much everything. Just starting with the roof. And then the board's the same colour, just a dark brown, which I'll lighten as I go. Just adding a lighter tone to it, put a little more yellow or ochre into it just to lighten it up. Once they're done, I just put some gold around the edge of both pieces. Looks a lot neater, a lot nicer once it's painted. Makes up for my bad cutting. Put them together. Use a water-based glue. If you don't, it will dissolve your foam like acid. So make sure it's water-based. Glue them together and weigh them down so they glue nice and firmly. Just going to use burnt sienna and a scarlet red, really small amounts. You want to just dry brush and scumble this onto the roof because you don't want to paint it red, you just want to have a nice red tone on top of the browns and the black as the base. To paint the walls, I'm using different colours to create a creamy off-white. And I'm also using a texture paste because for those of you with a keen eye would notice that I actually cut the walls out because the original windows I made, they were just way too big. So I had to redo them and sort of a Frankenstein's monster stitch it back up. So the only idea I could come up with was to use something to completely cover it up instead of redoing it. A little bit of Mrs. Doubtfire magic really did the trick. It's turned out really nicely, and the texture on the walls worked out really lovely later on too. I'm really pleased with it. To create the windows, I just used some sheets of clear plastic and just some straightforward acrylic paint applied to it. I wanted to make sure that you could see through them when the lights were turned on inside. It's just about putting it down, and it's like when you're a kid and you used to, get two pieces of paper and smoosh the paint together and pull it apart to have that kind of butterfly mirror image effect. It's the same thing with this. I wanted to make it look like the sky was reflecting onto the glass, because in the game, when you look at these buildings, especially during the day, they always look like they have light shining on them from the sky. And this was the idea that I came up with, which is really, really easy. And it looks really nice when you do it too. You just cut them out to the desired size, and then you've got yourself 2-in-1 windows. They look great. I love doing these style windows. I'm testing a stamp that I made from polymer clay for detailing and decided to use insulation foam because it's so much softer and spongier. Even though it's more dense, it works much better for making impressions. So I'm going to use this one to create the detailing. I can make indentations also with the end of a brush again, just push into it really nicely and smoothly. It works very well. Gold pen or gold paint, just for doing the detailing on there as well. And then just some reddish acrylic paint just to scumble over the top or dry brush it over the top. And don't do it too much. You don't want to put it into the indentations that have been created. It's an effective method. It looks good. And that's the detailing done on the base that will sit beneath the building. This will later have legs and a lot more detailing done to it, but that'll be in part 2. These are all the little biscuits of detailing I made out of the card foam. And I once again used the little polymer clay tool that I made. It's just a little diamond shape that I made. And you can see how thin the foam was cut, and I just pushed into it to create more indentations. Foam, carved wood. And here I used some filler to just fill in all the corrugations on the roof, because it was that or fiddle around with it and apply something to it. So I just thought I'd take the easy route and fill it in and then just paint over it later. Nobody will notice. So just put some brown on top of that, and then On top of that again I'll put gold, and then there'll be detailing done, and it comes up quite a nice neat finish. Finally, I've gone back to using the pencils, and I just put a nice layer of this cream colour over the top of the paint. It really brings out all the texture that was put down earlier with the paste, and it just lightens it and gives it more depth where it's darker around the edges. And you can get some brown and black of these same soft lead pencils, and then add shadow around all the pieces of wood and around the edges, and then just keep working on it until it really looks fantastic. It works well. In the next video I'll be doing a lot of detailing work and doing the legs and start working on the base. I hope that you enjoyed it, and do give it a like if you liked it, and I will see you next time.